But the first thing I want to ask you is, what can a reader who's going to be reading this book anticipate getting out of reading this book?
Well, first of all, Rabbi Weinstein, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today. I feel that I've really gained from our previous conversations about the issues and about the book. And even though I've been researching this topic at great length, I feel like our conversations in the past have caused me to think about the issue in new ways and from new angles. So hopefully we'll get to even more of that today in sharing with your audience. In terms of what people can gain from the book. So I think that I originally wrote the book with a Western audience in mind, and a Western audience that's not so educated about the facts, about what's going on in Israel today. Because there are a lot of narratives that are put out in the media, and very often the people who are promulgating these narratives themselves are not so deeply educated, or they're coming with a very clear ideological slant. And I'm looking for people to just understand, like, what are the facts on the ground? For example, we talk about land for peace. We talk about Judea and Samaria. What is Judea? What is Samaria? What are the consequences of potentially giving Judea and Samaria away? What are the consequences of holding on to Judea and Samaria? We talk about a slogan, meaning you go to a lot of college campuses, you read newspapers, you'll see them talking about ceasefire now. What are the consequences of a ceasefire now? What does that really mean? Let's interrogate that statement. What's happened in the past when ceasefire now has been tried? And furthermore, I think a lot of people began to think about Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Israeli-Arab conflict, the many names that have been given to this seemingly intractable war, is this whole question or this whole discussion is something that really came back into the public consciousness with a storm after October 7th. And a lot of people were not thinking about it, and a lot of people are just not familiar with the history. But if you look at October 7th, not as one watershed moment, but as a very intense occurrence that happened is part of a much larger context, then I think you have a lot more awareness. So I just feel like a lot of people are not educated. So the first thing that I think you'll gain by reading the book is gaining just a lot more awareness, a lot more context, a lot more education. But I think also the book has a certain narrative. As in, the book is being written to the average Westerner. I think most people who are plugged into the internet today have something of a Western mentality. And it's trying to understand, like, so why is it that ceasefire now will not bring about peace? Because we see there's a conflict. And if you know a little bit about history, you see there's an endless cycle of conflict. So we want to ask, how do we end this cycle of conflict? Ceasefire now sounds like a good idea. Land for peace sounds like a good idea. Or maybe let's let the international community take care of it. Let's let the big boys, let's let Syria or Saudi Arabia, the righteous nations of the world, Qatar, maybe take care of the conflict in the Middle East. Why doesn't that work, right? So the book tries to address that. And then we speak about things that might work or should work from a military perspective. And then finally, the book highlights perhaps a less understood element of the issue in the Middle East, or really in the world in general, which is that conflicts flow from ideology, conflicts flow from narrative, conflicts flow from belief. So let's interrogate, let's understand what are the narratives, what are the beliefs that are fueling the conflict, and how can we connect with the narratives, how can we connect with ideas that will resolve the conflict.